Greetings, everyone. My name is Monika Kostanyova. I'm talking to you from Slovakia. And today I would like to dive into the topic of fan-driven marketing and promotional activities with, of course, specific focus and research into ARMY, fan of BTS, a groundbreaking Korean boy group. So let's start. In order to analyze the fan-driven forces of ARMY, we need to establish the subjects we are talking about. Most of you, of course, know these, but I would like to clarify. So we have, of course, BTS, a 7-member boy group from South Korea that debuted in 2013 and since gained millions of passionate fans called ARMY. I could talk about only these two subjects for hours probably, but as we are using a business lens, a kind of the marketing approach to this topic, I need to introduce another big player. Big Hit Entertainment, it's a South Korean company that houses BTS and other artists. But what is the overall relationship between these three subjects? In terms of hierarchy, BTS and ARMY do not have a defined structural relationship. To quote Dr. Lee Ji-young in her book BTS Art Revolution, she states that BTS remains outside of the influence of the hierarchy and interacts with fans in a very horizontal way. This statement was a comment on a communication through social media, but I would like to use it as the overall definition of the dynamic. So the relationship is flat in hierarchy, it stays mutually beneficial and collaborative. Big Hit then, of course, plays the role of the management and all the business sides behind BTS. And they contribute as a company to the beneficial partnership of all three of these subjects because they focus on customer centricity. As presented at their community briefing from February 2020, Bang Si-hyuk, the co-CEO of Big Hit Entertainment, stated that no matter how the market changes, our core values remain content and fans. This creates a sort of business relationship between then the Big Hit as a company and ARMY, essentially forming this closed circle where Big Hit serves as a company, as I mentioned before, BTS is partially a brand, and ARMY as consumers or customers. If I want to talk about the fan-driven marketing, let's only look into the subjects that are supposedly actively participating in the creation of promotional activities. Big Hit, of course, as a company, executes various marketing activities to achieve the acquisition and the retention of the customers. And I would say nothing groundbreaking if I state that Big Hit's goal, or one of the goals, is to have engaged customer base that buys their products and services. And on top of that, they kind of hope that the customers become advocates. And as advocates, then bring in new customers without any additional costs for the company. And they have ARMY to do this. So ARMY, why they're so special is that they kind of created this ARMY ecosystem as dubbed by multiple publications, which makes then Big Hit's customer base really extraordinary. And what defines this ecosystem? So I would like to quote Nicole Santero, a PhD student at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And she stated that ARMY evolved with social media and they're smarter, safer, more strategic, especially in utilizing these platforms, meaning social media, for example, and combining them with grassroots marketing efforts. So just to sum up how ARMY work as ecosystem, so they are organized, they are quick to mobilize, they're tech savvy and ready for action. Well, knowing all of this, how does this affect or change the business relationship between Big Hit and the customers? So we see how the fans are really passionate, but what's their power in promotional activities? And I would like to maybe ask even bolder questions. Can they rival Big Hit Entertainment in the acquisition and keeping the interest and retention tactics? So in order to look into these questions, I've done some preliminary research besides secondary research. I've conducted an online survey consisting of 16 questions and number of participants was 500. The survey was distributed through social media, namely Facebook and Twitter, and therefore it's limited to the fans who are active on the platforms. But before I jump into kind of some implications and interesting facts from the survey, I want to define what I mean by fan-made content and official content. As I will be using these terms later on. So for me, the fan-made content is anything that's created by fans using maybe the original or the official content and making edits, different forms of art, videos, also fan accounts. Then, of course, that means that official content is anything that's distributed through the Big Hit and BTS channels, and any official schedule they attend and their appearances on official schedule. So quickly, just briefly, our participants. So there are 93% was female. They're in the age group usually 16 to 25 years old, and they are residing in the majority was residing in North America, Asia, or Europe. So for the purpose of the study, I kind of called ARMY a marketing agency for BTS. And so I would like to see how it manifests in the actions of the fandom. I will be pointing out only a few activities and kind of just illustrating and starting the discussion. For example, interesting thing is acquisition, so acquiring new customers. So what Big Hit, of course, does is the official schedules. BTS are booked for interviews, shows, performances. They're, of course, making music. And one of the many things that ARMY does, even though maybe not intentionally in the kind of the business terms, but they definitely use word of mouth. So from the results, there was a question, or where did you first see or hear BTS content? We have 29% of the fans that answered this survey were introduced to BTS through a friend or a family member. We can see it 29%. However, I need to point out that the official kind of content falls behind just by 1%. So overall, we can kind of say that the percentage is really balanced, and as you can see on the right side, and meaning in terms of acquiring new fans, both types of content are highly important. And if we go further and we think about the kind of turning the initial interest into one being established in the fan space, and so becoming kind of the customer of Big Hit Entertainment. Later, a question asked about what specific content was most useful, as we can see on the right side on the chart. And as you can see, participants had to choose top 2 types of content that was useful for them to kind of get into the fan space. And 429 chose at least one fan-made content as being useful or the most useful. But again, I think kind of follows up with the results from previous question. It's really balanced. So people are still using the official content is as important, we can say. We have learned also that the ARMY, the fans that answered the survey, got to know BTS through a word of mouth. A lot of them did. And it seems they're also actively participating in spreading the awareness about the group. As you can see on the right side, 83% stated that they talk about BTS around people who are not the fans. Therefore, they can be successful in converting the general public or someone who is not a fan into one being a fan, just as they were. Another interesting could be internal marketing. Internal marketing, what I mean by this is kind of what Big Hit and ARMY do in terms of keeping the interest and engagement of the current customers. So Big Hit, if you are a fan of BTS, you will probably know, Big Hit releases a lot of content from, of course, the music as one of the main drivers, but then a lot of reality shows with the members. And what ARMY does, or what they do, is slightly different. They either take the existing official content and reuse it, or repurpose, kind of make the edits or make threads and analysis, or they make their own kind of from the inspiration from BTS. So they're really kind of different. In terms of, if you look at the survey, the participants were asked how they keep up with the news and what content do they find enjoyable. And again, we can see really balanced results. So what content do you enjoy the most? 459 indicated at least one fan-made content that they found that they enjoy the most. On the right side, we can again see that the internal marketing is achieved through active participation and content creation. So participants were asked what activities they participate in terms of fan-made or fan-driven activities. And majority or most of them choose that they participate in 4 fan-driven activities. Of course, I could be talking about PR and promotions once again, and I would be probably repeating myself what Big Hit does and what ARMY do. it's really interesting in the sense that ARMY does in turn return engage with the content that Big Hit releases and therefore make it more visible, be it through the trends on Twitter, notifying other celebrities, or maybe even breaking the Twitter when something is happening. And all of this results into awareness outside of the fan space. So from the survey, we can see that more than a half, if we look at the left pie chart right now, we can see that more than a half said that it happened to them, that someone who is not in a fandom shared the news or content regarding BTS. And when I asked, okay, what was this news about? This is a kind of interesting point where it kind of crosses the official content and fan-made content, because they said that 90% of what they shared was news. So they're usually related to some kind of a donation BTS did, be it updates on the stadium tour, but also on some type of record that BTS broke. And we can kind of see that we know that fans, to some records, they contribute to breaking these, for example, streaming numbers or views, and therefore BTS get media coverage. So it's kind of the nice crossover of how fans fuel the media coverage. Yes, I think we are good on time, but for example, viral marketing as well, that's interesting figure that it's usually viral marketing is not planned. But what I found interesting is that majority shared that somebody who is not in this fan space, being a fan of BTS, shared fan-made content. So I think we can just kind of see the reach the fan-made content has. I think we kind of established the power it can have, the fan-made content and its place in the fandom. But I would like to bring it back to the beginning where I was talking about the Big Hit and BTS and ARMY and how the relationship works. So we have indeed seen the fan-driven promotions do have place in the marketing force behind BTS, but it would be easy to just point out at ARMYs as their power. And instead, we need to see the bigger picture, maybe ask some simple questions like, why do they do this? It could be summed up because I think if ARMY didn't have quality content, they wouldn't work with it. And I think it sums up in this kind of equation that a lot of companies want to believe in and want to try achieve, is that you have a great company plus high quality content and genuine brand, and you can get loyal customers, which in our sense would mean this. And I think it works from what I've said today and from what you all know if you've done research on BTS and Big Hit and ARMY. So without enjoying what BTS does, and therefore what Big Hit helps them to do, ARMY would not be that heavily invested, or they wouldn't work with the content because it wouldn't be, if it wasn't high quality, they wouldn't kind of want to work with it and engage. So as much as one might like to point at ARMY as this amazing group of customers, which they are in like the buying power and everything that was even said today at this conference, if Big Hit and BTS weren't doing things the way they are, would they be so passionate to create the fan-driven promotional activities? Would ARMY do this? So we are coming to the end. I have some limitations, of course, and further research. I would just like to point out there is a lot to talk about in this topic. You can be focusing on single campaign, marketing campaign. You can be just looking at the paying customers and try to see how you acquire them. But my conclusion, just to reinforce maybe, is that to conclude, the research can confirm a strong force and that the ARMY have place in the promotional activities, but it doesn't really quantify the power. It's kind of hard to say the definite answer. And we can see that in many cases, the fan-made content was as often consumed as the one released officially by the company and the group. And I stated this really bold question that can ARMY rival Big Hit Entertainment in their kind of hunt after perfecting the acquisition and keeping the interest and the retention tactics? And my answer to that is that all three subjects of this study are so closely interconnected that even seeing what content can be assigned to just fan creators and what to only companies sometimes hard, depending on who shares the content and such. And essentially Big Hit, BTS and ARMY work together in synergy. And from study, we can conclude that ARMY do indeed have a strong power in their fan-driven promotional activities, but I wouldn't call this study, at this point at least, as a definite answer, but rather as a starting point of the discussion. So thank you very much. And yeah, if you have any questions, then I put my email up there.